All right, guys, we will get this party started. The most important thing we're going to talk about all day today with Josh is Ohio State football. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. There better be football.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for coming. My name is Nick Dinsmore with ChannelBytes, and introduce my cohort in crime for the next hour. That's you.
Is that me or is that Josh?
That's you.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Lee with ChannelBytes.
And we're very happy to have Josh Skeens from Cerdant, CTO over there. And also clearly want to thank SonicWALL for sponsoring this discussion today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Josh, obviously the last 5 weeks have been just nuts, like just a lot of crazy stuff going on. And so I'm just curious, honestly, what's the craziest thing you've seen in the last 5 weeks during this pandemic? It could be personal or professional.
I was going to say, my wife would say that it was that I took clippers to my head and just cut all my hair off. So personally, that's what it would be. But then professionally, unfortunately, it's just seeing a lot of closure of business. I think that we all know that these are very unfortunate times that we're going through right now, but it's been somewhat painful to see friends, colleagues, people being laid off through this. So I know that we'll all make it out on the other end. It's not going to look quite like what it used to look like, but I do believe that we'll all stick together and we'll get through this. But professionally, it's just been a little bit heartbreaking to see those businesses close up and then friends and family and peers, unfortunately lose their jobs.
Yeah. I guess we should have backed up since we introduced ourselves. We should have introduced, obviously you are the CTO, but at Cerdant, but you also are a fellow Buckeye like myself, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Based in the lovely state of Ohio. And I guess any other thing you want to share about yourself as we kick this off and get started?
I would just say that even from a professional standpoint, although I'm the CTO, you guys know that my passion really lies with the people, the human aspect of business. So this talk today kind of resonates a lot with that because it blends my love of technology and people and passion together. So super excited to be here.
Yeah, and as much as there is AI everywhere, this is clearly we are all real people. There is no AI going on in this conversation right now, just to make that clear.
Right.
Maybe Chris, maybe in the background, I don't know. He may be having some AI work. Well, great. So obviously, outside of just, the craziness that's gone on with the pandemic, I think one of the topics that when we deal with at ChannelBytes, we deal with a lot of partners, we deal with a lot of technology companies, and we have constantly been getting feedback about this crazy new dynamic of basically how to communicate and how to work with people, that are fully remote and like you, obviously you're in the office as an essential business, but we're just hearing a ton of feedback about it. I'm just curious, what are you seeing and what are you guys doing about it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first, for me, just to, as we've discussed, it is a little bit differently. You guys are at home right now. I am in the office. Just so people know, we're running a skeleton crew right now in the office. So at any given point in time, we have 7 to 9 employees here. We're doing social distancing and doing the right thing. But for me, it's important that I'm actually here in the office with these employees and helping to support them because I couldn't rightfully ask somebody to come into the office and then me stay at home and all cooped up. So I come in every day and help support the employees and super appreciative of these employees that come in every day. And we are an essential business, so we're allowed to be in the office doing our social distancing. But we have things in the office that have to happen every single day, from shipping and receiving to lab work. And we do that very mindfully, but that is the reason why you see me coming from the office today. Back to your question, though, from a communication standpoint, I'm a pretty transparent person. So is Mike Johnson, our CEO. A lot of times, we're over communicators. So our communication hasn't changed much. It's just more of our style that has, because we're not in person anymore. So we do a lot of weekly email communication back and forth with employees, not only just to let them know that we're here for them, but to let them know what the state of the business is. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, so it's super important to communicate to your employees to try to calm any fears that you can, because I'm sure that your employees are wondering, are they going to have a job? How's the business doing? What's the next 2 or 3 months look like? And we might not know that, but we do know what we know now, and we can provide that information to them. I'm also making sure every single day I'm checking in on employees in the morning. I'm getting up even earlier, checking in with employees so they have a message waiting on me to make sure they're doing okay. Whether that's to talk about the weather or whether they worked out the night before or that morning. I want them to know that I'm here for them, and that certain is as well. And we've made uber important to all of our managers to make sure that we maintain all of our one-on-ones that we have with employees. We're a heavy one-on-one company, very social. So we've made sure that we continue to have those one-on-ones. That might mean that they're video calls now, but we're still making sure that we have some normalcy in doing our day-to-day one-on-ones with employees.
So given that you're an MSSP and one of those S's stands for security, what have you done to ensure that your support team, now that some of them are remote, can still take care of the customers and do it securely?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know that a lot of businesses we're working with are battling that today, but honestly, we've been really lucky. For about 15 years now, we've had remote employees in some fashion. Several of our employees are 100% remote, and many work from home anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 days a week right now. Each one of those employees have many offices that we've created at their house, so the technology is really the same at their house as it would be in our office. Now, that can be expensive for some businesses to do, but we found ways to cut costs on that while still maintaining security. And right now, if any of our customers called in, they would never know if the employee was at their house or if they were at HQ in Dublin, Ohio. That employee could be in the office with me, or they could be in their pajamas sitting at home right now, and no customer is going to know the difference.
Unless they turn on that Zoom camera, then they're going to see that those pajamas, which.
That is exactly right. Although we did have pajama day in the office a couple weeks ago, so everybody was in their pajamas. But yeah, I mean, you're doing Zoom calls now, or GoToMeeting, whatever you might be using. You're seeing spouses and kids and pets and everything else, which to me is very real and raw. But for us, we'd already flushed this out for our current employees, and we actually used remote work for our disaster recovery procedure. So it was really a light switch for us. I know that was not the case for many businesses that we worked with, but it gives us peace of mind because we already know that our security controls that we have in place for employee home networks, they're already there. And it makes it really difficult for somebody to try to compromise employees' home, if not compromised already, and get back into our office network.
So being that you're, a big group of engineers, one might say kind of the nerdy or geeky people.
Watch your mouth.
Easy.
What type of collaboration tools are you using, or are you changing how you use them?
So we're really changing how we're using those tools. We've kind of got caught right here in a migration process. So this has actually let us vet some other software out. So we, up until probably 3 months ago, were a heavy Slack team for internal communication and joined me for external communication and for facing with customers when it comes to support. We've been slowly migrating over to Microsoft Teams for our internal communication and Zoom for our external communication. And if anybody has questions about the Zoom stuff, I'm more than happy to help flesh that out. But so we have some overlap right now, which is really good though, because we get to use a lot of these tools for more communication today. I've done more video calls in the past 3 weeks than I've done in 16 years at Certain, and I like it a lot. And I've always been a big proponent of having video calls, but I can tell you the other side never really wanted to have video calls, whether that was employees, peers, or customers. A lot of people are pretty standoffish about it now. But as I said before, it's kind of the rawness of seeing someone at home. You're seeing their kids go fly by, or their pets, or last week we were on a call where husband and wife we're sitting back to back, and the wife kept turning around making faces over top of the husband's shoulder, and we were all dying laughing, and he had no clue what was going on. And we're a remote company, and probably of our 1,000 or so customers, I've maybe got to meet 5% of them, face to face. And now I finally actually got to put a face to a name to many customers that I've worked with for dozens of, a dozen plus years that I've never actually met before. We do a lot of our new prospective customer meetings on Zoom meetings, and they seem to be going very, very well. It seems more authentic that way. I would tell you that I don't see us going back, and I don't see companies at all going back. I mean, would you rather have a conference call, or would you rather see somebody on video and actually be able to pick up on facial expressions and tone and things like that? I think it's something that we're not going back to. We're going to continue to use video calls.
It's the nonverbals that help kind of bridge that relationship, which is, it's funny. We deal with a lot of engineers like you guys too, and it's it is a shift though. It's a shift in being comfortable on video, being comfortable to be able to have conversations. But I wanted to shift to, obviously, Chris said the MSSP, and we talked about security, and as this is sponsored by SonicWALL, I would be remiss not to talk about, what security considerations and technology are you guys using, or do you think about when both securing the business and then obviously securing remote workforces?
Yeah, so we're a large SonicWALL shop. Probably at any given point in time, we're the largest SonicWALL MSSP in the U.S. We have more certified SonicWALL people under one single roof than probably anybody in the U.S. I know at one point in time that was a fact. I believe it still is, but outside of SonicWALL, I don't know who that would be. But we're leveraging their secure mobile access to provide access back into the office for our employees. So we have multiple ways for our employees to get back into our office. Many of our employees have SonicWALL firewalls at every single of their homes that have a secure tunnel back into our office that requires multi-factor authentication via Duo to get back into machines and resources. If it's been an employee that they typically don't work from home, but they need access, we have an SMA that's set up to where it provides them access back into their resources to get into the office via multi-factor authentication again. And it's very limited to what resources they have access to. But for many of our employees, 40 plus that work from home quite often, with that firewall, they have their own network segment where they go home, they plop on that network, and they're in our office. They don't know any different where they're at, which makes it very seamless but secure for them as well.
It brings up an interesting article that I read about. Gartner put out a survey surveying a bunch of CFOs, and they indicated that 74% of them intend to shift some of their employees to remote work permanently going forward. So what do these businesses really need to consider, and kind of specifically when you're looking at, like, we were talking a little bit about SonicWALL, at what point are you looking at actually deploying a physical firewall, or just using, a remote access SSL VPN solution?
Yeah, so I saw that quote too, and I would agree with it. I don't think there's any going back from a remote work option. Many businesses, honestly, were super ill prepared to deal with employees needing to work from home, whether that was because it's not something they believed in or promoted or had the ability to do it. What we've also seen from a security aspect, though, is a lot of businesses have taken shortcuts to get there right now because they needed something to get turned up pretty quickly for businesses. So if you're familiar with the website Shodan, it tracks a lot of security issues out there. You can track and see what nodes are open on the internet for people to have access. Just since the 1st of March, they've seen a 50% increase in open RDP, which is a big no-no. And what happened there was people were ill prepared for people to work from home, so they just lit up RDP for people to get back into the office, where they really need to be using something like, secure mobile access via VPN or some other VPN access. So I would advise that leaders, they need to first determine what's going to be acceptable for a work remote option. Is that 1 day, 2 days a week? Is it more? once you've decided that and you have the requirements that employees must meet and maintain, you have to get that hashed out, go to your IT and security teams, get them involved, determine what the best path forward is. Are you going to mandate certain technology requirements for employees to have a home? Like, are you going to make them have certain AV? Are you going to require them to have a firewall? Are you going to give them a firewall? Will the business need to purchase hardware such as, the SMA appliance? Will they have to purchase VPN licenses for if they have a firewall right now? Most likely they have the ability to do a GVC connection or SSL VPN directly off their firewall, so they have to do that. Do they have cloud-based applications? A lot of people are moving to the cloud, not just because of this, but previously we're moving to the cloud. But are those secured properly for, rather than 1 or 2 people using it now from home? Maybe you have 50 people or 100 people. Do you have that locked down with MFA? It's easy to have like a permanent remote workforce, but it drastically increases the threat surface for a business. Threat Post a couple weeks ago published an article that said by having remote workers, your threat attack surface increases by 4x. So we've been doing it for a number of years. It can certainly be done. It has to be done the right way, but it's not easy, and it does take proper planning to do it.
So when you look at like there obviously lots of retail, lots of companies have been really hard hit here. When this all started going down, the gym I belong to, which is it's called Orange Theory, we got a notification saying that they laid off 80% of their workforce, literally like into week 1.5 into this pandemic. So a lot of industries getting hurt. How is it being a managed service provider actually helped some of these companies? I know there's some examples out there that we talked about when we were prepping for this call where being an MSSP really helped them in this environment.
Yeah, hospitality, retail, however you want to throw it all together, but man, they've been ravaged with this right now. And you certainly feel for those businesses and for those people, because it's not like they lost a job and then all of a sudden they can turn around and go find another one. I mean, people are just flat out of work. I mean, there's over 1 million people in Ohio that have, applied for unemployment right now. But where it has helped businesses like that is they necessarily didn't have an IT staff that was doing what we were doing at the point in time. So they just picked up the phone and called us and said, hey, we have 100 locations right now. We're turning this down to carry out only, and it's going to be 21 locations. We need to turn down services on 79 locations. Well, they didn't have to lay anybody off or go furlough an IT staff. Unfortunately, they did call us and, pause and discontinue service, however you want to look at it. And we take that hit. But for them, very dynamic in nature that they were able to turn that down, not have to worry about paying that bill now. But then, a couple weeks later, they'll come back and say, well, we're killing it with takeout. So we're going to turn these 7 locations back online now. So can you turn them back up for us? So we literally just go turn some knobs and flip some switches, and they're back up and running. They have full security, wireless, everything's good. So for them, it's the ability to be super agile by using us or any other MSSP. It pays huge dividends for them right now, rather than having this heavy overhead and burden of having that staff that, they had to let go of, but now maybe they want to do more carry out. So maybe they got to try to bring these employees back. Maybe that's still too much overhead. So by using and outsourcing some of that, it helps them greatly.
Right now, everybody listening and everybody that sees this afterwards is going to think MSSP, turning knobs, flipping switches.
Yeah.
That's going to be, that's what you guys do.
I really dumbed that down a lot, but it is pretty easy for us to bring people back online like that, specifically if we kind of have a game plan and we know that that's what they're going to do and they're not just going away as a business. We can really put them on pause. So it does make it like flipping switches and turning knobs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the difference in, it's having, paying for the infrastructure and having systems in place that do all these things obviously makes a huge difference.
Right. Yeah.
I guess on that note, while obviously a lot of industries have been devastated, there are still industries that are growing and still requiring services. And specifically, on-site services, right? So, professional services or needing to implement hardware, software on site. How do you handle that now? Like, I mean, how do businesses handle that in a world where, social distancing and you have to be careful? Like, what are you guys doing? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, really good question. So for us, we've been lucky so far. We haven't had to go on site. We made a determination pretty early on that if we could not go on site, we would not go on site. We would not ask an employee to go on site if they did not feel comfortable. We've had some, employees that have raised their hand and said, "Hey, if I need to go on site, or we have customers that need somebody to be there for them, I'm more than happy to go." But we ask that our customers take the appropriate precautions at that time as well. But for us, we're a 90 to 95% remote workforce anyways when it comes to interacting with our customers. So we've had to get creative with some of our engagements with customers, because many of them actually that had engagements for us to be there no longer want us there. Not that they don't like us, but because of everything that's going on, they're kind of wanting to make sure they keep the social distancing and interaction to a minimum. So now we're getting very creative with how we're delivering services to them, which was supposed to be on site, but doing it remotely now. But also, this helps them a lot too, because a lot of people are starving for revenue or not wanting to have to pay bills. So we're able to reduce the cost of that installation or that project for them, because I don't have to send somebody on site now. I don't have travel and expense. I don't have that body there. The person sitting in their pajamas at home doing the installation for the customer. Now that might mean that the customer themselves has to do a little bit more of the manual, touch for us, plugging things in, telling us what lights look like, statuses, different things like that. But we've been able to pull it off so far. For peers that I do know of that have still had to go on site, they're practicing social distancing. They're making sure that they're taking hand sanitizer with them. Some are wearing masks, some are wearing gloves. A lot of times it goes on what the person wants and or what the business is requesting at that time too.
So let me ask you more, I guess, a global question around the trend for MSSPs, and then maybe the trend for what businesses, who they select when they want to choose outsourcing. You guys, you mentioned you're 90% remote, do a lot of your work remote. Do you think that the trend will be that MSSPs in general will move away from doing on-site work? And I guess the second part of that is will businesses look to MSSPs that are have expertise in being remote like you guys versus somebody who, 50%, 80% of the work is all on site?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I believe that the next couple months that you're going to see a lot of people reach out for known MSSPs or MSPs that can do work remotely. Some of that is just from a comfort level. They're not going to want people on site that maybe they haven't been around. I mean, there's just a lot of uncertainty about what's going on today. And everybody's dealing with it differently, but also a lot of businesses are just looking for cost savings. And if you can save a business $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 by saying, "Hey, I can do something remote," compared to me sending somebody on site and spending X amount of days, plus you've got travel, they're going to look to do things more remote. I feel like once businesses get more accustomed to and used to and believe that people can do things remotely, that they'll start to lean that way. But there's always going to be the necessity to have people come on site to repair servers, run cable for new internet drops. I mean, that's still going to be there. But from an installation of, let's say, a firewall or installation of new antivirus or wireless or anything like that, if it can be done remote, I think that you're going to see customers start to push towards remote and see what kind of experience they get with that. And I would say, again, my opinion, but as an MSSP or MSP, if you can't deliver services remotely today, you're going to be hurting in the future. You're going to have to find a way to customize your processes and train your engineers, your techs, your support people to be able to pull this off remotely, because if you can't do that today, you're going to have to go do it tomorrow. People are going to demand it of you.
So let's start looking a little bit forward here. I mean, it's clear that that a lot of people, or a lot of us, were caught flat-footed in here. and just kind of want to understand what are some of the lessons that we've learned from this experience. If you could share some kind of, I mean, obviously you can't share specific customers, so specific use cases that you guys ran into, and what have we learned from that for a go forward strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first and foremost, what I've told a lot of people is there was no class they taught anybody in school. There is no online course that was going to get any of us through this. I mean, many people have disaster recovery plans and good ones. I actually, I've got my certain disaster recovery plan right here. It's at all times. We have a hard copy, but you know, nobody taught us how to get through this. So we're dealing with it and managing it the best way we can right now. I do believe, though, that businesses are going to take the idea and the thought of being prepared for anything more seriously now. Just with the disaster recovery plan, I think a lot of times people look at those as it's something that everybody tells you that you need, but you'll never use. Well, guess what? A lot of businesses really need it right now, and they don't have one, so they don't know what to do. And I would say that there's probably some percentage of businesses that have gone out of business because they didn't have a plan in place. My recommendation to people is, and how we do it at Certain, is we're uber prepared with that stuff. We took the time many years ago to build out a plan, but now we review that plan quarterly. We practice it, once a year. We actually enact it once a year, so we know how it actually works for us. But businesses, it's so dynamic that it's not something that you can create today and then not use or pull out for 3 or 4 years because nothing's happened. When you pull that out, you're going to go look at it. It's not even going to compare to what your business was 3 or 4 years ago. It's probably going to be 50% unusable. So it's something that you need to make sure that you're looking at on a probably quarterly basis. I mean, that's what we do. At minimum, biannually, you need to be looking at it. But from a leadership role, I think that we all need to take it a lot more seriously, that it definitely can happen. And I think we will be better prepared just for going through this, because if we can get through something like this as a business, or leaders or managers or employees, I'm certain that we can get through anything.
So you're a CTO. We've got other CTOs and technology people listening and watching. Who owns the disaster recovery planning? Is that something that falls within the realm of the IT shop? Is it a leadership? Like, where does that fall?
Yeah, so for Certain, it's on the IT team. We actually have an internal disaster recovery team, but it encompasses many people from different departments. It's not wise for just the IT team to run it because it could probably be so complicated and not useful, right? We would be making decisions for departments that we might have no insight into. So some of the first steps you need to do is you need to identify the key personnel that would be on that team and would have insight and visibility into your departments. So you want to have somebody represented from HR, sales, accounting, because they all need access into different applications and software, things like that. So it's important that all those people are giving you feedback into what you need to build into that DR plan. Now, they might not be responsible for building that disaster recovery plan or implementing the technology or anything like that, but most certainly they need to be a part of that team so they can give you that feedback and details as to what each department needs access to.
So let's say, take a quick extension across that team, and we talked a little bit about SonicWALL specifically as one of your key partners. But overall, I know we know that you work with a lot of technology partners. How have they supported you and your clients during this time?
Honestly, we deal with a number of partners and vendors, and they've been nothing short of amazing to us. Early on, customers started reaching out to us looking for relief. What I mean by relief, hey, can we defer payment for 2 or 3 months? We might not be able to pay. Is there, some kickback we can get? Is there a percentage off we can get? And we try to be very mindful to our customers and do what we could with them. But in the meantime, that also meant that we need to look at our vendors and our technology partners and say, well, what can they do for us? Because if a customer's leaning on us, we kind of need to be able to lean back on our partners and our vendors too. Right. And they've been nothing but accommodating to us. very understanding. They've given us a relief that we've been able to pass on to many of our customers. And many times, through this, I've told people, everyone needs everyone during times like this. And the technology community and our partners have just been fantastic through this entire thing.
So I guess on that note, around just support and communication, obviously how you engage with the partners, how you engage with prospects, how you engage with clients, like all that's shifted, right? How would you, and the folks we've talked to, they're struggling with how to try to figure out, again, this new normal. What are you seeing and how to actually change, how you deal with those different sets of people? And, what do you have to, do you have to support sales in a different way because, they can't go out and shake hands and go to dinner and do things like from a technology perspective?
Yeah. I mean, you got to learn how to support a remote workforce, right? And everybody's doing that now. And that means having technology out there that maybe people are not used to using. So now you have to be able to provide them support and training on that. From a sales perspective, getting them used to using new sales applications. Luckily enough, we use Salesforce, so our sales team is pretty trained up on that, and they have access to Salesforce wherever they need to. But for a lot of businesses, they don't have that, so they have to get used to supporting a remote workforce. Is the hardest thing that I've seen people dealing with today, and a lot of questions that I've gotten over the last 3 or 4 weeks is, how do you deal with a workforce that you can't see, you can't feel or touch every day, right? That's really difficult for people that are used to having somebody in the office every single day, and now somebody's at home and they're trying to do things over the phone. A lot of that goes back to security awareness training though too, because I dive into security a lot when I go into this stuff, but it's just increased the threat landscape so much for us with having remote workforce now. And we've seen an increase in phishing attempts when it comes to email. Social engineering is going to kick up too. So now it's like, well, how do I verify that it's actually Chris that's on the phone telling me that he needs access or his password reset, and it's not actually Nick from somebody else trying to social engineer me? Like, you have to be able to teach employees how to pick up on that. And you probably, as a business, if you've never done that before, you have to have processes created for your support team to even know what to do and what questions to ask. So those are a lot of the hurdles that companies are trying to do right now.
Yeah, I guess on that, I mean, so what's your advice to the CTOs and the IT folks? I mean, so now are thrown into a position to support, HR, sales, operations, not that they weren't supporting it before, but in a different way. Where do they go for help? How do they educate themselves to be able to support this new position they're in?
I would tell you that the security community is a great community. So I'd be reaching out, LinkedIn, getting with your peers. There's always somebody out there that's already dealt with what you're trying to go through, if not hundreds of people. So I'd post, if it was me, I'd post a question on LinkedIn and say, hey, can somebody help me out with this? Give me a call, shoot me an email. I have these questions, or can you put me in touch with somebody? You would be inundated with phone calls and emails of people wanting to help you figure out how to do that. Some of the first things you're going to have to do though is identify what your key problems are. The top 5. So let's identify what our top 5 problems are. Get those done. Once those are done, let's move on to the next 5. But now you're going to have to be able to create a process document about what that is. Then you have to educate your staff too on what are these new processes, what are we supposed to be doing, what are we supposed to be looking for. And that is from a support perspective, but then that is also from a normal employee perspective of get them some security awareness training. There's some great security awareness training out there that's free right now. KnowBe4 offers some free security awareness training I know of. Get them through that. Make sure they understand what to look for from a phishing email that's making sure that it's not their boss. That's asking them to wire money very quickly because they need something. That never happens. But many employees don't realize that. So I would key in on some security awareness training for that staff right now.
Okay, that's great advice. Let's talk about, as bad as things are, sometimes there are, I guess, the silver lining of forcing people to make change. I think we all can picture somebody in our head that is stubborn, resistant to change, doesn't want to kind of move things forward with, the technology or business, and, kind of stuck in looking at maybe looking at technology from a 1980s view. And I'm being obviously a little facetious, but like, do you think that what has happened has now shaken those people and prodded those people into making a change and moving into the new world of technology that they do have at their disposal?
Yeah, I would say there's going to be some people that won't change, and just because they won't, that's in their personality. They won't, and I would tell you most likely those businesses that fail to pivot, fail to change, they'll just die. Um, we have to change right now. What we've known before, we're probably not going back to it. We have to learn to embrace what's happening now, and what was normal 3 months ago, what your business looked like 3 months ago, it might not ever come back. To think that even for us as a company of 54 employees, that we're going to have 90% of our workforce back in the office at all times, it's not happening. It's not going to. It'll be months before that probably happens. And even then, even though we have a lot of people that work remote now, I see an uptick in that. I see an uptick in remote workforce for all businesses. I see that a lot of businesses that have pushed off moving to the cloud, they're going to move to the cloud. Now's probably not the time to move to the cloud. And the reason why I say that is because it's not a light switch. It's something that takes some time to do. So I think that's why we probably saw a large push from businesses early on to get on VPN, or maybe not do the right thing and open up RDP, direct access, because they might want to move assets and applications and software to the cloud, but it's not quick. So it's not something they can do right now. It's something they're going to plan to do in the future. And I would urge businesses to look at that. But also, maybe their core business is gone. Maybe what you did in the past isn't there now. Maybe you need to adapt and go back to your employees and ask them of things that maybe customers are asking. That's one thing we're really good at as a business, is that we take a lot of info from our customers, our support people, our admin team. We're always taking requests from customers about maybe what they would like to see us add or change or do. And we don't always use that, but it's great to build that knowledge base of information, because maybe now one of your core offerings is just gone, but you can go into that knowledge base of info that you've gotten from customers over the past year and spin up a new offering.
So when you talk about, not recommending moving to the cloud aggressively right now, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that. But also, the other flip side of that, we're talking a lot about remote access SSL VPN, and I feel like before this all happened, that seemed like a very dying technology, and now it's like the hottest thing going. Right? Is that here to stay? Is the move to the cloud just going to be slower now? I mean, at some point, a company is going to be at a disadvantage if they don't adopt their go-forward strategy based off of all these factors we've talked about, from people working from home, and the attackers are getting a little more creative because they've got a wider market to hit now, and stuff like that. So I guess my question is that at some point, companies are going to be at a disadvantage. When you talk about remote access, you talk about moving to the cloud, you talk about work from home, where do you see that breaking point?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great questions there. Actually, I would tell you, just overall, from VPN standpoint, we've deployed more VPN stuff in the last 45 days than we have in the last 3 years. And I don't know that it was necessarily dying off. I feel like businesses were either taking work remote very seriously or they weren't. There wasn't like an in-between. And now it's like everybody has to work remote. So now it's being taken very seriously. And the easiest way to get there today is to do VPN. That's the quickest, dirtiest way to do it. And dirty probably wasn't a good word, because it's very secure if you do it the right way. And when I said that, now's not the time to move to the cloud, the reason why I say that is because many businesses have their hands so tied up in just normal business right now of trying to get their remote workforce still up and running. I mean, I think that people might have a false sense of, well, it's been 30 days, it's been 45 days, everybody's working from home fine now. Well, that's really not the case. We still have businesses that are scrambling to get people on remote work access right now. So they're still trying to build that out. So to do that, then also say, well, I'm going to move away from my Exchange server and go to Office 365 in the cloud. I mean, you're looking at a 3 to 4 month migration. So if I need somebody to have that access today, it doesn't do me any good to start that move to the cloud. I would rather, and I would advise from my spot, that you do that in a more well thought out manner and in calmer times maybe. Now it might calm down in 3-4 weeks for you, and it might be a little bit more business as usual, but a little bit lighter. That's a perfect time to work on some projects where you have that time. As for the question about being a disadvantage, what I would say is, from a business perspective, if 2, 3, 4 months from now, you can't offer your employees a work from home option as a benefit, whether that's 1 day, 2 days, full time, whatever that might be, or even a new employee that's coming in, if you can't say, yes, we have work from home options, then you're at a severe disadvantage. That new employee that's looking for a job, they might get up and just walk out, because most places are going to have that available. Employees love it now. I mean, the average commute in America is over 30 minutes. Imagine now that you're getting over an hour a day back every single day. Many employees are more productive working from home. Many employees are less productive working from home. So that puts a strain on management as well. So there's a lot of things around business that's going to have to change and become more normalized when it comes to remote workforce. But we're not going back. The days of the days of everybody being in the office. I mean, you guys work remote, 24/7, and I'm an in-office guy. That's just the way I am. My carpet is finally, as some of the people said, the carpet's finally growing back in my office because people can't walk in and out of my office all day long. But I love being in the office. I love being around our team. But we also have some highly successful employees that work remote 2, 3, 4 days a week. Some work 100% remote. But that's only going to continue to grow for all businesses. And if you don't do that, you're going to put yourself at a severe disadvantage.
So let's lots of good insight there. Let's unpack a few of them. One of the things you really mentioned is, it's almost a necessity for businesses to have the ability to work remote. Let's talk about culture. How does all of this, again, advice to other people in your position or clients or partners, how does culture play into all this? Like, what should people be thinking about? The culture that they had in their business, or they're trying to work through. They're building a culture, maybe one thing. How does all this change that? And I guess, is there a technology spin to it?
Definitely a technology spin if you don't have something that's giving you the ability to do video conferencing. From a cultural standpoint, I would tell you that. Culture is kind of everything for us. And I think for most successful businesses, I mean, you guys read a lot of business books too. I mean, if you look at some of the most successful businesses in the history of the US and even today, they lead with culture. That's what we lead with. Although we're a technology company, you walk into our office, most people go, we would never know that this is a technology company. It's not everybody sitting around hoodies and playing games and things like that. We're a very social company, and we love being around everybody. So it's been pretty difficult on us to not have that interaction every single day. But we've done some amazing things. We've really amped up our communication, video calls. We're trying to do fun things on a remote aspect. We're doing brain teasers on Mondays for gift cards. We've been running bracket challenges and things like that. To have a remote workforce and for it to be successful, there's a lot of work that is involved with it. I believe that the more remote workforce you have, it probably means that you need more managers per head count, because if you want to maintain that culture, you have to be able to reach out to those employees and have conversations with them and let them know that you're there for them. That doesn't mean that you need people checking up on them and looking over their shoulder, or you're thinking that they're not doing work. I think that you just have to be mindful of making sure that those employees know that you're still there. You're available. If they have questions, they shouldn't hesitate to reach out to you, that you still care for them as human beings.
So what would you, it's great. Like I think, from our perspective, we obviously are a remote company as well. But I think, what would you say to someone who's, what tools should they look at? I mean, obviously we're using Zoom today. You've mentioned Slack. What other things or ideas right now can people try to implement easily to try to keep that communication and keep the bond going, with whether it be technical people, non-technical people, sales people, whatever group in your company? How do you try to keep the connection going? Any tips just for the people out there that are new to this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you have a cadence that you have kept for in-person meetings, there's no reason why that cadence should change, if not improve, for remote. So we do biweekly one-on-ones with every one of our employees. We have maintained that cadence. We've actually increased the cadence of which we reach out to our employees. So we're a heavy process-driven company. So I would tell you to look out and plan and create some process around how your managers are supposed to be interacting with your employees. Ask your employees how they want to be interacted with. Some might not like being on video. Some might want a heads up if you're going to pop in on them. If it's somebody wants to get their makeup put on, they might not like the fact that you're doing a Teams call and it's a video chat, out of the blue. They might want to know that it's going to happen on Thursday at 8:30, so they can have their makeup on and they can have at least a nice shirt on. Maybe they're just rocking shorts.
Or maybe if they're laying in their bed on their computer working, right? I mean,
hey, I've seen that in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
It happens. Not everybody has an office right now, so
that's true.
That's been something that I've discussed with peers, and we've had challenges too. Is that not everybody has an office at their house, and even if they do right now, maybe their wife is in the office and they're at the kitchen island, or their kids are in the office and one's at the kitchen table and one's at the island. So be prepared to see all that stuff, but just know that your employees are human at that point in time. And I think a lot of the times it's best to figure out what type of communication those employees need and want from you as well, from a manager.
That's great. All right, I think one last question maybe before we open it up for any other questions is, we've talked a lot today about a lot of different topics, but one topic I wanted to address is really downtime, right? So I actually read an article from the CEO of LinkedIn was talking about, needing to have space between meetings and, kind of that buffer zone. But we working from home, and even if you're in the office, we seem to be working more. The people that are working with all this free time, what are you doing? What's happening in all the free time? Are you working more, working less, taking advantage of it? What's happening?
I can tell you my neighbors are working less because they're killing me on the landscaping front right now. But so when they're at home all day, they're working on the landscaping. But for us, it's training, process improvement, review, and then a lot more training. We're trying to make the most use of our downtime right now. Not going to lie, our support calls are down right now just because a lot of businesses are shut down that we support. So we have that extra time, and we've made a pledge right now to keep everybody, working, and that's what we're doing. And we're just asking in return that employees are using their time wisely, and that is to review processes, create process documents. We all have that list of things that we want to get done. And then you have that other little subset of things that gets always put to the bottom, and it starts to creep to the middle, but it always goes to the bottom and it just never gets done. Well, we're like knee deep in the bottom stuff right now. We're putting a huge dent in that list. We're looking at process documents that we've created, updating those. We're then turning those into how-to videos because we've realized that people learn in many different ways. So although Chris might like to read the process document, Nikki might like to watch the video on how it's done. So we're doing that. We're reaching out to the team to learn what they need, even more from a documentation process creation. Lots of training around products and services to keep the team sharp. And, there's probably only a small percentage of people and businesses right now that are using this time wisely and are growing and getting better. And we're making certain that we're some of those people and we're that business.
That's awesome. So why don't you, well, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. So just kind of want to make sure we have enough time for this. I really appreciate you taking time to do this with us today. So let's hear a little bit about Certain. We know you guys are an MSSP. I mean, what is the elevator pitch? When is the right point for you guys to get involved? I'd love for our audience here to see kind of from your perspective, not the salesperson's perspective of where Certain fits.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We've been around for around 19 years as a company. We started off as a managed firewall company, and we've grown since then. I've been here for 16 years. There was only 4 of us when I started, but and for many years, that's all we did was manage firewall. We did SonicWALL, and that's what we did. And we did it really, really well. But now, we've grown into a full service cybersecurity company. If you have a need from a managed firewall perspective, we're there for you. We can do that for you. We have a lot of expertise on staff around wireless. We do a lot of wireless stuff for customers today, whether that's remote deployments, on-site surveys, predictive analysis, doing wireless troubleshooting for people that are having issues. We have CWNAs on staff. We have our own technology department based around Wi-Fi, so we can help there. We have our own CEHs on staff, so if you need any pen testing done, professional services, we provide that as well. AV, we do a lot of AV installations for our customers too. So we kind of run the gamut. Today, right now, we talked about it a lot, but a lot of our installation business has been SMA stuff for SonicWALL, helping businesses get up and running from a secure mobile access so those remote employees can get to working. So customers and businesses are leveraging us to do that stuff as well. So really that's the elevator pitch for us. If you guys have managed firewall or need help from a professional services standpoint, cybersecurity, have questions, that's what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thanks so much. I obviously want to a huge shout out to SonicWALL for sponsoring this session and having the conversation and being a part of the technology community with us. So thanks so much, SonicWALL. Thank you so much, Josh and Certain. And let me look and see if there are any questions. If anybody has any questions, we have a few minutes left. If not, we'll wrap it up. Anybody? Your discussion was so robust, Josh. You made sure you covered every topic, so nobody has questions.
Silence.
Silence. All right, guys. Chris, anything else?
Good. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for all the attendees. This will be live streamed or downloadable on YouTube as well. And thanks again, Josh Skeens from Certain and SonicWALL. Take care.
Thanks, team.